Hello and welcome. I'm Joe Matthews, a California columnist and editor at Zócalo Public Square. At Zócalo, our mission is to connect people to ideas and to one another. Everything we do is free, and everyone is welcome. We publish original writing and present conversations like this one. Find us at zocalopublicsquare.org and on all the main podcast platforms. And if you enjoy this conversation, please like it, follow us, or subscribe. For my Zócalo column, Connecting California, I roam around the state. I've learned that while California is a very big place, many of its greatest wonders are in our small towns. I'm speaking to you now from the city of Taft, population 9,000, in the southwestern San Joaquin Valley, where I'm reporting a column for a series on rural California that we're publishing with the partnership of the California Wellness Foundation. Tonight's event, What Makes a Good Small Town, is another piece of the Zócalo California Wellness Foundation partnership. And tonight's moderator, Diana Marcum, is herself a California wonder. She writes brilliantly about our small towns and rural areas for the Los Angeles Times. In 2015, she won the Pulitzer Prize for narrative portraits of farm workers, farmers, and others right here in the Central Valley. She's the author of The 10th Island, Finding Joy, Beauty, and Unexpected Love in the Azores. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you, Joe. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event, What Makes a Good Small Town. And thank you to Zócalo Public Square and the California Wellness Foundation for presenting our conversation. I'm excited to introduce you to tonight's panelists. Rene Mendez has been the Gonzales city manager for over 17 years. In 2019, Gonzales was awarded the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's Culture of Health Prize. He's the former Inyo County administrator and a graduate of Duke University Master of Arts program for public policy. Megan Beaman Jacinto is the co-founder of Mujeres Advancing Leadership, Advocacy, and Success. She's also the founding attorney at Beaman Jacinto Law, PC, and a Coachella City Council member. She previously worked for CRLA. Christopher Cabaldon spent 11 years as mayor of West Sacramento from 1998 to 2020. He's a former Hazel Kramer Endowed Chair and professor of public policy and administrator at CSU Sacramento. Christopher is also partner at Capital Impact, a multidisciplinary consulting firm. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So my first question is to kind of pinpoint what it is we're talking about when we talk about a small town. Rene and I talked, and I just kind of threw out 30,000 when I was throwing around what I thought of as a small town. And he said he'd be pretty hard pressed to consider a town of 30,000 a small town. But Christopher, West Sacramento is 53,000 people, and we have you on a panel for small towns. And Megan, you're in Coachella, which is what, 50,000? Even though you have a lot of experience working in places like Thermal that are only 1,000. So I'm just gonna go down the list and you tell me what it is you think we're talking about tonight. Rene, what's your definition of a small town? Before we get to how to make them better.
Definition of a small town, I believe is, I know we talked about 30,000. You know, to me, something less than that is a small town. There's a lot of those towns with that population. And I think but more importantly, is the connection people make and the ability to maintain those connections and the intimacy. So hopefully, maybe 40, 50,000, you can maintain that. And I think that's really the key to a small town is the ability to maintain the intimate connections. So maybe. I would say under 30.
Oh, okay. You'd say a lot under 30. You said you'd be hard pressed.
Yes, I did.
And I came around to your way of thinking. Megan, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to respond the way I think I'll respond to a lot of questions tonight, which is to say, I think it depends who you ask. I'm comfortable with the less than 30,000 benchmark tonight, although two of us represent larger towns or cities than that. And I'll say in a lot of places, a town or a city of 30,000 would be considered a pretty good size, bigger city. But I know in California, that's not necessarily the perspective that we have here. So it depends.
Christopher?
Yeah, I agree with both. Among the mayor's group, there is a definition. So it's at exactly that 30,000 threshold. But I think, the number aside, because it is relative, and, if you sit next to the city of Los Angeles and you have 80,000 people and they have 3 or 4 million, small town is a bit socially constructed. It's like, what do I think of myself? But what does everybody else around me say? If they all say, oh yeah, you're just a small town, that's telling you something. But I think one marker, at least for me, because my city was 28,000 when I became mayor 20 years ago, and now it's 53. Is this one? If somebody comes and testifies at a city council meeting, and your first thought in your head is, oh, that's Diana, she's the 3rd grade teacher, or oh, that's my cousin's ex-girlfriend, or whatever, as opposed to that's Diana on behalf of some organization with 500,000 members, you're in a town.
If you have some connection, more know them in more than one role. Yeah,
there's this sense that civic dialogue is a dialogue among people, like as individuals who have relations with one another, that as opposed to like social forces alone or organizations alone.
That's interesting. There's someone else who agrees with you more or less. When they announced this topic, I don't know who Gene Koch is, but I hope he's watching tonight, and I'm really grateful to him because he tweeted an article about what Aristotle thought about small towns. So I want to read you guys this. Aristotle's main criterion for deciding whether your polis had gotten too big is whether or not, quote, the citizens should know each other and know what kind of people they are. Rene, can you tell me if your town, Gonzales, meets that criteria?
I think it most definitely does. We talked, and you'll see it in a lot of our literature and our website, the Gonzales way of love, care, and connect. And that came about very organically. And it's what the town, when you ask the town, why do we do something? Well, this is the way we always do it, the Gonzales way. So I think that's a perfect definition, is love, care, and connect. And you're really together. Doesn't mean you always agree, but you're together and you are able to work through some issues.
Is it kind of a be careful what you wish for thing when you want that closeness and knowing each other?
Yes.
Would you
absolutely
share
is.
Examples?
Absolutely. We had, I think I mentioned to you, we had this, what I thought was this great multifamily housing project. And, we went by the book, we followed all the process, we noticed, and literally, a couple of weeks before the meeting to unveil it and put out the construction schedules and so forth, the community came out against it. And some members of the community, and it was an uncomfortable conversation, but we had the conversation. And they felt that they were connected with their council members and the mayor. I'm sure the mayor and council members can appreciate that when, they were getting personal friends, relatives, teachers of their kids and all of that was really reaching out. So it was a very uncomfortable conversation, but we worked through it. But the connection allowed us to work through those issues.
And you were having that conversation with people you knew.
Correct. We were having people we knew. All of a sudden, somebody that you thought you never had any really major disagreements were really like, it was an emotionally charged for about a month, a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion in the community. Wherever you went, it was being discussed at the liquor store, at the barbershop, in the post office. It just was being discussed.
And it's not just at city council. You're going to have to deal with that conversation when you pick up your kid from school or when you go get a beer.
Yes, the dentist. Well, and I think I think the mayor and the council member here can attest to that. They're never off. It's 24 hours a day. If they're out, you're always on in your community. So absolutely everywhere the conversation was happening.
Okay, a quick follow-up question for Rene, and then I'll move on. How big do you think Gonzales can get? And when I talked to you earlier, you have such a palpable deep love for your town. And you do seem to know everybody. How much bigger can you get before you lose that?
That's an excellent question. West Sacramento, I think, is dealt with that. And I actually grew in Riverbank when I moved there. It was 5,000 people. Now it's over 23,000. I don't know. I don't think I have a great answer to that question. I think as we continue to grow, just make sure we maintain those connections and continue. Sorry.
Mark Archunian.
Try to reach out there to see if we can make it work. So maybe 30.
Okay.
So,
And maybe it's not about numbers, but a certain kind of thing. Christopher, so I live in Fresno, and when I first moved there, they loved to say it was the biggest small town in California. And I didn't know what that meant. But then as I kind of saw how many generations people had known each other and how interconnected the place was in a lot of ways, there's no way I'm calling Fresno a small town, but I kind of understood that they had started as a small town and still saw themselves that way. So was West Fresno, did it go through that kind of thing? I mean, do you really still consider it a small town, or is it a city that still has some of the strengths and the things that make a small town different or special?
Yeah, it's both, right? And in fact, sometimes we talk about our objective to be a small town vibe with big city amenities, right? We want to. We're right next to the city of Sacramento, so we're not a rural small town, and so we're constantly affected by their culture. We're the Ireland to their United Kingdom in some ways, and it has changed, right? But also the growth, and I think this generation of leadership has also revealed that the interconnectedness that we feel isn't always completely real, right? Not that those connections aren't real, but that there's a whole lot of other communities inside the community that aren't part of that. That you may miss when you only have 8,000 people, or when we had 28,000 people. Say, oh, I'll go to the Rotary Club and the Chamber Banquet, and I'll go to the Friends of the Library dinner and the Ducks Unlimited Scholarship Awards, and I will run into everybody. I'll run into literally everybody. But I wasn't really running into recent immigrants from Laos. I wasn't really running into folks in the Ukrainian community who had developed their own social institutions. And so as you get bigger, I think it's important if you want to stay a small town, you have leadership and community groups, and everyone has to keep vocalizing and living that norm, but also you have to really look at it through clear-eyed glasses. Okay, now that we're a little bigger, maybe I can get a bird's eye view and say, not everybody's a part of this tight-knit community that we thought.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was reading more of that Aristotle piece, and they were worried about how open they could be and not have people come over the gates and attack them. And I thought the new version of that is, how can you retain a sense of community and a sense of where we have this identity, and still be open to newcomers, still be open to new cultures. Megan, I think you can talk about this almost better than anybody. She grew up in a small town, Earlham. Did I say it right?
Yes, you
in
did.
Iowa. And how many people when you were growing up?
It was around 1,300 population as I was growing up.
And how would you describe it?
Oh, wow. It is a very rural community. The closest city is Des Moines, which is about 30 miles away. It has one gas station, one grocery store, one bar, one stop sign, I think, maybe 2 stop signs now. So sort of physically, that's how I could describe it for you.
Okay, and the people that live there?
Well, the town is very closely connected still. I'm not as connected as I used to be growing up. It is home to many people and families who have been there for several generations. It is very homogeneous racially and also politically. It's very rooted in agriculture and takes that as a source of pride, but then also at the same time very influenced by the agricultural industry's power and politics.
And now you're in a city who's also very homogenous, right?
That's right, in a much different way. The city of Coachella is racially very homogenous. We're about 97% Latino. And I would say that is changing, sort of similar to what Christopher was saying a moment ago. I think Coachella is in really a pretty major transition in terms of, its smallness, so to speak. We've grown substantially, probably doubled in population in the past 15 years or so, and are continuing to grow faster than any other town or city nearby. And I think as we do that, we're having this struggle where I think there's a difficulty in adjusting the mindset of who is from Coachella, or who's Coachella made of, who really is from Coachella and who isn't. There's some of these conflicts and ways of thinking that present challenges to us as leaders and community leaders to use new approaches and more inclusive approaches to building our city and incorporating all of its growing population.
And a follow-up question, do the people who live there, do they dream of becoming Palm Springs, or do they want to be the best? Do they want to be a bigger community? And I'll get to you too, Christopher. Do they want to be that bigger city that's just down the road, or has, a little more flash, a little more things, or do they want to keep it what it is?
Yeah, so my mind goes a few places with that question. One is, there is a way of thinking in Coachella that I shared to some extent, which is that, as we develop Coachella into the future, we want to ensure that it's preserving spaces and culture and history for the people that live there now. And at the same time, we have about 70% of our city is agricultural, undeveloped, so to speak, agricultural land that's really ripe for development. And that could present good opportunities for our city and for our residents, or it could present obstacles and challenges if the development occurs in a way that, substantially changes our city or even pushes some of our residents out. And as we look at the region in which we exist, there's really a lot of disparity between, the working class neighborhoods of Coachella and, even more working class neighborhoods of, Thermal, Mecca, and some of the unincorporated communities, as they're compared to some of the wealthiest zip codes in the entire state, and Indian Wells, and
right down the road, right?
And Rancho Mirage and Palm Springs. And so sometimes as we're thinking about what's next for Coachella, the gaze goes toward those, luxurious communities to the west of us, as if that would be a goal or a benchmark. And it could be in some ways, but that could also present a risk for our residents. So we have to be really careful in balancing those thoughts and those dreams.
Right. And if anybody's watching who isn't from California or doesn't know Southern California, the places that she's talking about are very rural, agricultural. It's a hard life a lot of times. And just down the road is some of the greatest wealth in California. We're talking, huge sprawling hotels and resorts, the Coachella Festival, which I'm sure is beginning to change things. Christopher, does West Sacramento, when you were little, not you, when the town was smaller, because you were mayor for so long, you saw that transition. Did the town want to be Sacramento, or did it always say, we want to keep an identity as a separate thing that we are?
So like so much in, I maybe probably all of politics, but certainly in small towns, both. It was like, so if you asked our residents 20 years ago, yes, we want places to shop, we want a riverfront that's alive, we want a downtown, we want all these things, and we also don't want to change at all. So I think there are very few places, very few small towns that want to grow just to grow. It's, as Megan says, it's how do we, what do we do to make life better for the residents who are already here? So I think that's been part of our challenge, and I think where we've had a good amount of success is like keeping those together, constantly checking. Like we're not trying to be the fastest growing city in California. We're trying to grow just enough in order to meet the needs of our people and to start to attract some of those amenities. So now you can shop here. Now you can go to the waterfront. Now we have a downtown. But I don't think anybody that wants to a Sacramento living experience can easily and will just move to Sacramento, and it's right there. I mean, I can see it from no,
You're
Sarah
right across
Palin.
the river,
I can
yeah.
see it from my house. It's not that far, and so if everything that Sacramento has to offer, we have here. Even as mayor, I often say to other folks, if you could choose any place to be a mayor, the ideal place is a smaller, medium-sized city or town right next to a big city, because a lot of the major infrastructure, a lot of the hey, let's spend $100 million on subsidies to attract a big new employer or whatever. I can't do that. That's totally impossible. So they don't even bother. Nobody bothers me with stuff like that. I can kind of draft behind the big cities when it matters, but really focus on on maintaining and building out a livable small town place. So in some ways, I think for both governing and for living, it's the best of both worlds.
That's interesting. So I have to confess, as a writer, that's the kind of towns I like are the ones that have a lot of space around them. You know, that as a writer, what's interesting are these little towns that are often out in the middle of nowhere. But Christopher, you brought up a really interesting thing. I see the disparity. You know, it's so hard for them to get any kind of help from the outside. I mean, you're on your own. If you happen to be a stable town with a good city government, great. But we have towns in California where there's been small fiefdoms going on for years. You know, there are towns that I go to that I don't think any time of the year I haven't seen recall signs. They are whatever they are, and no one's coming to save them.
But I do think it's every kind of place like that you've described. It has a natural advantage and a natural disadvantage, both at the same time. As Megan said, it depends. And so for a lot of us smaller towns, is that we have the advantage of being able to be nimble. Like we don't have a lot of a big bureaucracy. If we want to do something, I know Rene does this. I've done this too. You just walk into City Hall and you just yell, open your office door, and start yelling, hey y'all, we're gonna deliver broadband to everybody, or we're gonna launch universal preschool. Let's just go out and do it. Now you can't do 3 or 4 of those things at a time when you're a small town, but you could marshal everybody. And
I guess that's what I'm saying. Like the ones that had good leaders and had a good core, they could really do stuff. But if it wasn't there, they were in.
Well, right, because the flip side of that is, if I wanted to work on a climate change topic in a big city, it might be a battle between the oil and gas industry on one side and the environmentalists on the other side. But the problem I might face is there's only 4 other members of the city council, and I need 3 of their votes, and 2 of them hate each other because one of them stole their prom date in high school. The small towns, if you're lucky, you can be as nimble and as activist in some ways, more so than a big city. But if you're unlucky, you're trapped in that very dysfunctional kind of politics.
Okay, follow-up question: was the prom date story true?
Not the current city council. I'll at least just say that, not the current city council.
At some point. Rene, he mentioned being nimble, and you seem pretty proud that you guys can kind of rock and roll and do your own things. So something that everyone was dealing with this last year was the pandemic, and a lot of mental health issues, especially for young people. So can you kind of walk us through how these big, huge issues that everyone's dealing with are different when you're dealing with them in a small town? What did you guys do when you knew your kids were in trouble because of the stress of the pandemic?
So I think the approach might be a little different, might be a little quicker, like the mayor talked about. You don't have to go through a lot of hoops to get something done. But I think the key is to have partnerships. So one of the advantages, we're 15 miles from Salinas, which is the largest town in Monterey County in the Central Coast, at over 150,000 people, is maintaining the relationships and cultivating partnerships to be able to address issues when they come up. And the mental health issue here hit us like it hit everybody in the country. And what happened, our youth council and our youth leadership really rallied around that. We haven't had a couple of unfortunate things happen to young folks it turned out to be good.
Particular incidences, right? Where
Yes.
people were in trouble.
Right. People were in trouble, but we responded. It kind of galvanized, but it galvanized at different levels. Our young people really galvanized around what can we do? How can we reach out? How can we support? And so, you know, we did the surveys, we reached out, we did a lot of programs, and we're kind of creating this wraparound mental health approach to our community. The other thing that we did very quickly is both our council and our school board came together and agreed to jointly fund a licensed clinical social worker and those types of positions to have that asset ready here, to have it more available for young people in our community. So we studied, and then based on that, a couple meetings, and we activated around some real concrete approaches to really try to deal with
But
this.
these were the kids themselves, right?
These were the kids themselves, our youth council. They're the ones that.
How old are they?
Excuse me?
How old would you say their age range is?
14 to 17.
And you gave them the autonomy, you gave them the power?
Yes. I mean, they participate within the structure of city government and the school, but they have the ability to bring forward recommendations, to discuss them with the council, to provide, you know, their perspectives. And then, you know, we take action if the council feels it's something we need to do.
But I mean, do you think they were heard more than they would have been heard in a larger town? Do you think it was different?
You know, I don't have a real perspective on that. I don't think so. I think it's the mayor talked about maintaining the connections, right? Being intentional about continuing to maintain those connections. So I think if you do, I don't know when that stops. I don't know if it's 100,000, 150, 200,000, 50,000. But I think if you do that, you can continue to grow and still maintain those connections. We're dealing with a significant growth project right now, and the community is supportive, but also concerned about how do we maintain or feel the Gonzales way, the small town, because towns need some growth to be able to provide the vision that the community wants as far as things, whether it's schools.
Well, that idea, the Gonzales way, that, you know, some towns, they have the such and such way, and it can be pretty exclusionary. You know, it's excluding a lot of people. Do you think that the Gonzales way is going to keep other people that don't traditionally live there out, or are feeling uncomfortable?
I don't think so. If the Gonzales ways may love, care, and connect, which is kind of the little.
You're hoping that's universal?
Yeah, we're hoping. But it's almost like when you're growing a plant, where you have to nurture, you have to put water in it, you have to continue to maintain and fertilize or clip the dead leaves and stuff like that. I think it applies. I don't know, that popped into my brain, but it applies to as you're growing the town.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't assume things are always going to be there.
Right. Now, Megan, with your work, I mean, you've worked with CRLA, so you're out in communities that might not even be incorporated. You're out where people really are a little bit on, it's up to their own devices. They're kind of on their own for even basics, like how to get water to drink. Can you kind of talk about how small is maybe too small and what the challenges there are?
Yeah, again, you know, I wouldn't assign any numbers to that, but I think it has to do with a lot of factors. And the communities that I work in as an advocate, the unincorporated Eastern Coachella Valley communities in particular, are very low resource and really distant from even the infrastructure that exists or that would ostensibly cover them as a jurisdiction. A lot of these communities have been formed in rural agricultural areas simply because there is a lack of affordable housing or housing at all for the farm worker population that serves the enormous agricultural industry here. And so over time, farm workers and farm worker families have had to come up with literally their own way of building housing in this area. A lot of that has taken the form of unpermitted and informal mobile home parks, sort of spotting the entire rural Eastern Coachella Valley. There's about 135 of them now. And each one is different, both in size and resources and so forth. But, they share a lack of what would be common services in a bigger small town. Most of them are not connected to the municipal water district, even though it's part of the water district's jurisdiction. Most of those communities do not have access to septic systems and are relying on really inadequate and informal sewage systems, for lack of a better term. And then, just the biggest obstacle, I guess I would say, for those very small, isolated communities is the cost of investing resources, because it costs more per person, for example, to extend water lines into a community of 115 people than it would if that was a larger city or a larger small town. And so you'll hear from the jurisdictions and from the state and from the funders, is it worth it to them to spend that kind of money to only reach a certain number of people? And that's a really big challenge.
And then on the other hand, there's no bureaucracy, there's no city, there's nobody really watching how they solve the problem. So
right.
Are you a fan of being a small town as opposed to being a community? Do you think there's an advantage?
There are definite pros to being in a small community and in a rural community, or even outside of a community on your own ranch or your own piece of land, right? There are pros to all of those situations, and there are also challenges to all of them. And, a lot of the residents of the rural unincorporated Eastern Coachella Valley choose to live there because they want to live in more rural settings that preserve their own personal values and ways of life. But, even if it's a choice to be there, and that's not the case for everyone, it presents a substantial amount of challenges. And when the challenges have to do with people's health in terms of the contamination in the water or the air, or the lack of ability to recreate and so forth, it becomes a difficult way of life, and also sort of a difficult problem to solve. And, for those unincorporated communities, they do have a government, or they do have a jurisdiction that should be watching over them, and that's the county of Riverside in this case. But they're they're isolated communities without a lot of political power. And so in order to get the attention that's needed to really solve some of these big problems, there has to be, a huge advocacy push or some other type of political support and power to really get it before the Board of Supervisors or the other county administration to find the solutions that are needed. And short of that, which is often the case, the communities have been really innovative in seeking out and implementing some of their own solutions. With the example I gave earlier, the formation of all of these mobile home affordable communities, I guess you could call them. But we've also developed some of the first point of use community water filtration systems in the state. We worked with the Department of Public Health to develop the regulations that would permit those. And then we installed the first two here in Thermal and Mecca. We also worked with the State Public Utilities Commission to develop new regulations for mobile home utility provisions where previously it was unregulated. So we look for those, how can we get around what would be traditional solutions and find some others, even if they're interim, to really get to the problems or challenges that we're facing.
So are we let's see if we can come with some ideas on how to make we're trying to think how to make a town a good one. So water would be the key. I mean, this is California, like drinkable water. Is that the baseline then? Or what would you say, Rene?
I think water, depending on where you are in the state. Broadband is another huge issue in this day and age.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So I think particularly the year after the last year and a half of the pandemic, right, really brought a lot of these issues to the forefront.
Christopher, broadband's your thing, right?
Well, it is, but Rene is the champion on the broadband.
Oh, yeah?
issue. Yeah, I mean, what Rene's done in Gonzales on broadband is I mean, it's a big national story. And it's where I first met him.
He doesn't have to brag on himself.
Yeah, I mean, so in Gonzales, it's it's not a big city, and so you can, in a smaller town, you can imagine actually solving a problem. In a big city, you're like, hey, let's adopt a 25-year plan to do X or whatever. But in a small town, it's like we're gonna have something else to work on next week. So whatever we're gonna do, we need to do it right now, and we can't leave people behind because. If the family that I leave behind, their mom happens to be the coach of the soccer team, my kid's not going to get put in the game. So we're not leaving anybody out of this solutions. And so what you saw in Gonzales was like a really bold attempt to do that with small town tools, like we can move quickly and the community's ready to organize itself and volunteer, but also with the big city tools, like we're gonna contest regulatory actions at the state level that no one's going to see this coming, and nobody did. And Gonzales, was the lever where a lot of other folks had given up. Gonzales was too small to know that it was impossible.
I love that. Too small to know that
we were doing, kind of similar work. We launched a universal preschool like 18 years ago. And we should have known better. That's just not, you don't do that as a small city. And we did free college. We were one of the first ones. Every single high school senior in West Sacramento is automatically admitted to college now. We're the first in the country. But most of that's because we can do it fast, and then we have to move on to something else because we have other problems and other opportunities, and we don't know better. And I do think, the kind of thinking to your question, I think part of the challenge when you were asking, like, is it water or is it something else, is that in a big city, like I know a bunch of big city mayors, and they do exactly this. It's like, okay, what are my top 10 priorities for the year? What I'm going to work on is this, and that. But in a small town, it's like, I know what all the problems are. What was really going to be like, what is this week's opportunity? Okay, this foundation announced a grant and they have a category just for small towns. So maybe I could apply for that. Or this law is about to expire. It's my one chance. Or this company wants a rezoning. Or the trash company contract is up and I might be able to, get another $100,000 of cash out of them. Right. So when you're a small town city official, city manager, or mayor, or city council member, you're like the things you can make progress on are partly based on what you need, but also partly like what is the opportunity set that you happen to encounter, because you don't make the universe when you're in a small town.
So what are the things that can most change life for people that live in a small town then? Megan?
Well, you asked, a moment ago about whether it's water or maybe it's broadband. I think in order to be a good small town or even a good community of any size, everyone should have those type of basic services, and the access to water, access to housing, electricity. Those are, in my view, basic human rights. And so where we don't have that, it's not only not a good small town, it's, an inhumane place that's really being left behind. And we have a lot of work to do in those communities. So that has to be a baseline.
State and right. I mean, there's global laws, but yet we have so many towns in California that don't have drinking water.
Right. Exactly. And that's not only in California. That's another challenge that I shared growing up in rural Iowa. So, I mean, those are some baselines that as a matter of human dignity and probably international law, every community, every place should have. But as we think about, what do we need to make a good small town above and beyond those basic
needs? Yeah.
Yeah, basic needs. I really relate to what Christopher and Rene are saying in terms of our ability to sort of address things in a much quicker way than we would be able to in bigger cities. That nimbleness is very important, but it also grows out of the relationships that we have within our small towns. Without those relationships and without our connection to the community, we wouldn't be able to act in such a quick way. And I think that's really important for us as a small town. And it's something that we have to, as we're going through this transition, I think in Coachella, it's something we have to work really hard to try to preserve so that we are able to continue to build in that way.
Because some of our, some of my bigger city neighbors, they kind of see us sometimes, not as much anymore, but they've often seen us as like a basket of problems. Like your city's poorer, it's more rural, has more immigrants and farm workers, and it has had a gang issue in the past. And so, surely you must be working on that 24 hours a day. And I'm like, it's always on my mind for looking for opportunities for solutions. But if you ask the residents in our community, there's like, their question on Thursday is, what is there to do on Saturday with my granddaughter, right?
Yeah.
We don't live this life of like every moment is all of our social and environmental ills. We know that they're there, and we're like always looking for a chance to fix them. And we sometimes get big breakthroughs, but we're also just living life. And you expect your city in particular to be delivering on parks and everything else, in addition to what are, as Megan and you both described, are very much the basics.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about small towns. I mean, a lot of the towns that I've written about, I'll read other coverage and it'll talk about how this is the poorest place in California. This is where there is the most crime. And my own personal memories will be so different, because I'm like, oh, that's where they have that yearly party and every family comes. And there is that incredible grasping of of what joy you have and what's there, at least to me. Rene, I've never met somebody well, I have. I've met a lot of people that like where they live, but you really seem to like it. So Have you lived anywhere other than Gonzales?
Yeah. Before here, I was in Bishop, California, I was county administrator. It's not a big town either. The entire population of Inyo County is under 20,000 people at the time. So very large county land-wise. I grew up, I was born in Patterson, California, which is a small town. Then we moved to Riverbank, which at the time was 5,000 people. When I went away to school and other things, I lived in bigger communities. But yes, small towns have a way of sort of grabbing you. When I moved here, my two kids were very young, 3 years and 6 months. So this is their hometown.
And does Gonzales have a center? Do you have like a center of town?
It's our downtown.
And do you think is it key to a town to have a cultural center, to have somewhere that everybody goes?
And our school systems. And I think one of the things I want to add to kind of one of the things that's needed for a small town, and I think both the councilmember and mayor has spoken to this, is creating this sense of opportunity and possibility. Mm-hmm. Just because we're a small town doesn't mean that we don't have that. And the parks, the schools, everything feeds into that. But it's really the sense of the potential, the possibility, and the opportunity that I think is also something.
Do you think other people moving to your town would have that sense of optimism and possibility, even if they didn't look like the people that have always lived there or don't speak the same language? Or
based on my experience here, it has been people that move here they're moving here because of that.
Are you seeing some diversity in Gonzales?
Excuse me?
Are you seeing more diversity in Gonzales?
We're seeing diversity in age, so we're getting young, and experience or background. We're starting to get more folks that have gone to higher education, the young professionals, just because of the quality of life issues. We're starting to see they want to maintain those connections. A lot of our mayor, our current mayor, Mayor Rios, likes to say, if you just added every graduate, 170 graduate a year for the last 15 years, how can we want them back, but what do they have to come back to if we don't have the houses, or what we celebrate them going on to college or going on to their careers, but we want them to come back. What will they come back to?
You want housing, you want jobs.
Housing, and so there's potential.
That's the test of a good small town, is whether people want their kids to leave, get out, never come back, or whether they hope they can come make a life.
Right. And I think that's the issue. We're trying to make that,
create
that opportunity.
Yeah, in California, our small towns, they depend a lot on the relationship to the big towns that are nearby, you're right across from Sacramento, but Megan, you've got this huge musical festival. Coachella is bringing in just so many people and so much money. And I have seen like, farmhouses in Thermal renting for $5,000 a night. I don't know if anybody bit. Does that change things?
I think that first of all, the Coachella Fest is in Indio, just to dispel
Very
any
close, though, yeah.
any mythical thoughts that people may have who are watching. It's in Indio, which is close by to Coachella.
What would you
and
say, though, drive-wise?
What was that?
I mean, how far? It's like what, a 15? How long does it take to drive? Yeah.
Just depends where you are, but it could be 10 or 20 minutes. It's a bordering city. But as the Coachella Fest has grown, I think it's provided a lot more benefit for the already existing resort cities who had that, infrastructure to absorb tourism and to receive tourism in their hotels and their, Airbnbs and so forth. Yes, some of the residents of Coachella and even some of the unincorporated communities have here and there been able to rent out their houses, but by and large, the benefits of that festival have stayed with the festival cities and the resort cities, again, because of the lack of infrastructure in our smaller towns and our rural towns to be able to absorb the party goers who are looking for a certain type of environment and a certain type of lifestyle while they're here.
So it's completely separate. There's not been like a culture change. It's still this real divide.
It's largely separate. And while, we're talking about some of the things that we can do quickly in small cities, but one thing that we've been doing over a long term is really building up the public arts in Coachella and building up some of the cultural events that will draw visitors from outside the city in a different way than in the resort cities. And as we build that, we're hoping that we can, also absorb some of the substantial investment that comes into the valley during those music festival weekends. But that is a longer process because of the lack of resources and lack of infrastructure that we have.
So Christopher, what's the most, you said like the greatest thing about small towns is that they don't know what can't be done. What's the most innovative things you've seen a small town do?
Well, I actually have to put Gonzales on that list, and I have, even when Renee's not in the room. So that is definitely one of those big examples. But there are small towns that sort of invented much of the urban farm movement accidentally. We were a part of that, but we weren't the first one. But urban farms are one of these great examples, because urban farms in most cities, when the idea first came out, were illegal. Right, they violate the zoning.
You're talking about having it in your front yard, growing the vegetables,
or more like a piece of like abandoned property in the urban core, and you'd say, well, folks want to farm there and grow produce, or in our case, they wanted to train new farmers, and we said that's a great idea, and it's also illegal because you can't do agriculture in the residential zones. Now, this was a good example because a large city nearby us. Wink, wink. And we both had the idea and the inspiration at the same time. Hey, we want to do more of these. It's a great idea. You get healthier produce. You clean up a blighted property, like all good things. Help train new farmers. And they did what a big city normally does. Let's convene a task force and let's commission several studies to analyze the impacts of what would happen if we did this, and then charge the people who want to do an urban farm in order to do that. We said, look, we don't have the time or the resources to do any of that. So we'll tell you what. Diana, you want to start an urban farm? Go ahead. we won't enforce these rules right now, and we're going to learn from your experience doing it what the rules should be. So rather
than the time frame, were you able to just
let's get some hoses, we'll get some water out there, and it was open within a couple of months. And we've done that on several things, but it's an example. When we say we're nimble and that sort of thing, it operationalizes in ways like that.
You can just jump in, try it, see how it works, and kind of hone it as you go along.
Learn by doing, which is how in a small town, that's how you do everything. You never have the time to say, hey, for the next 5 years, let's work on this, and let's spend 3 years on a plan, and then that never pays off in a smaller town, because you can't count on the resources and all of that. And so the extent to which you can just jump And if you can't jump, then maybe put that aside and work on something else for a minute until the jumping moment arrives.
That's exciting. Okay, I've got some questions coming in that are so much smarter than what I thought of. So let's look at some of these. And Rene, you're being quiet. How can you address the role that housing has on the small town feeling? Is one of our questions.
It's a huge role. It's the ability for your community to, maintain a sense of place for themselves. And I think, so it's an incredible role. It also can be very frustrating when you can't bring the development in or you can't build the houses. That leads to some of the overcrowding and some of the other challenges that we face here on a daily basis. So, for us, if we've done a better job on the housing side, that would kind of allow some folks to breathe. And, I talked a little bit about dreaming for the potential. Lack of housing gets in the way of that, no matter how well you're doing everywhere else. When we have people living in our garages and we show up on Saturday evening because somebody reported it, it's not a safe situation to live in, but you don't ask them to leave, you try to work with them. So I think it's an incredible need for small communities to have adequate housing. It's a challenge to get there, and it's been a challenge for the last couple of decades. We're trying to work on it. We don't, like I think the mayor, we don't have really an opportunity just to complain, because we'll get it thrown right in our face immediately. So we got to figure it out. Doesn't mean we're successful all the time. But it's an incredible asset that small towns have the housing they need.
Well,
Because
and
even
a
if they
diversity.
have a job in a bigger
The
city,
diversity, right?
A diversity of housing is so, because one of the things that distinguishes a small town from a suburb, at least done right. I know that kind of the thing that we like to say about our town is that we have a place to live for everybody at every stage of life.
Yes, that's good.
And so a lot of suburbs don't. Like a lot of our wealthier suburbs, they're all 5-bedroom houses, and they're designed for folks who are between 30 and 50 with kids and make $300,000. So it's only good for that. If you're coming home from the Air Force or you just retired, it's horrible. But we're trying to be a place for everyone at all those different stages. And that's even harder because there are a lot of developers who love building gigantic tracts of suburban homes. But in a smaller town, it's harder to attract the different kinds of housing that bring it place to life and that cause your kids to want to come back home in the first place.
And how about the walkability and the cultural centers? We've got a question about that. How can you make a town have that center, that cultural center, the walkability, the place that you want to be?
Zócalo.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take us down. You observe. You simply watch where your community goes and where they revolve around. The centers, a lot of times, they tell you where they're at. So it's really understanding where your community kind of gravitates and goes to, as opposed to this huge study, kind of going by taking out the playbook and going to the checklist. So it's observing your community, listening. And then you try to activate around that. We did a joint use gym with the school in an area where now the community revolved around last year, passed the half-cent sales tax to fund a community center complex in that location, that's where they go.
You knew where they already were walking around or
yes.
getting.
So
yeah.
In a smaller town, I think it's easier to kind of identify those and to really try to involve the community. Kind of involves itself. They want you.
I always think of it like almost like a soap opera or something. Like there has to be that one place that every character is going to run into each other at some point. That small towns have to have that. So you're saying you find that point, and then build around it. Okay, Megan, what's the most innovative thing you've seen come out of a small town?
Well, that's a good question. And as we're thinking,
With a mind, that's one of these that are coming in. But yeah, that is a good question.
It's a good question to whoever posed it. And it sort of takes me back to Christopher's very insightful comment that some of our towns are too small to know what's impossible. I hadn't thought about it that way, but in Coachella, we were the first city in the nation to ban private prisons as a type of use. And I think that would be controversial in a lot of places, but it was like without thinking, we did that. We were also the first and still the only city to implement hazard hero pay for farm workers. So those are some, innovative things that I think we did because we didn't know they were impossible, even though those are sort of smaller symbolic items. But I really go back to—
How much was that hazard pay?
It was an extra $4 per hour for 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah. We were very proud of that. It received a lot of opposition from the agricultural industry, which was anticipated. But, farm worker families are really at the root of our city, and all of us 5 council members either grew up in farm working families or feel very connected to that aspect of our community in many ways. And so it was, it was a decision that we made, and it was the right decision, but we might not have been able to do that. We probably wouldn't have been able to do that in a bigger city, and it hasn't been done anywhere else in the country, probably for that same reason. But thinking about innovative solutions, I want to go back to this water filtration issue in the eastern Coachella Valley. The wells in those communities are often contaminated by arsenic and nitrates and even sewage because of the lack of septic system. And there's just no really feasible short-term or even long-term plan to get those communities connected to municipal water service. And the traditional filtration systems that existed in the past also were unaffordable. They could be like over $1 million for a community of only a few people. And so working with the nonprofit leaders in the Eastern Coachella Valley, including especially one called Pueblo Unido Community Development Corporation, we looked at what is the other technology that exists in water filtration, and why is that technology not permitted as an interim solution. And once we could look at those factors, we could go to our elected state leaders and also the Department of Public Health and say, can we get this permitted? Because the alternative is to have thousands or hundreds of people, depending on the community size, with no water source at all. And so, that was a tremendous achievement for the Eastern Coachella Valley. And it's also been now implemented in places like the San Joaquin and Central Valley communities that also have the water contamination issues.
Wow,
so I'm really proud of that one.
People from the Central Valley getting in touch with you.
Yeah, we're in touch with a lot of them too. So.
Okay, so you're such different communities and such different concerns. I mean, Megan's talking about the basic human right of water to drink. Rene, Christopher, you guys get to, I guess you have the luxury of thinking a little bit farther down the line. And I'm wondering, here we've got a question that's right along the lines of what I was wondering. Have you thought of creating extension campuses of large higher education opportunities into places like Gonzales or Soledad or?
So we have, for example, next to Gonzales, the Soledad, which you mentioned, our junior college is building a campus there that we all supported. So that's happening. We created a connection with California State University, Monterey Bay. And so they helped our youth through the mental health services, some of the work they did there. So we're intentionally trying to bring them here to create the connection with higher ed and the city and the community. So we are looking at that. And I think the campus in Soledad, the Harnell's building. I'm on the Harnell Foundation Board. Our council is really engaged with the junior college, and so we're trying to leverage our local higher ed institutions to come into our community. And
so if you get those houses, you'll have the education. Do you think your kids will come back?
I think so. We keep hearing a lot of youth wanting to come back, and so. they go off, they explore. I think we kind of all did that. I did it growing up, but these towns have a way of sort of bringing you back, particularly if, you solve some of the infrastructure challenges that we all face at times.
Christopher, did that help? Because you've been able to see it go from a small town to something that everybody else here is a little bit skeptical we're going to call a small town. Did that have a lot to do with it, bringing that energy back, bringing the young people back?
Yeah, I mean, yes, in part because that's a marker of so much else, right? It's so yes, Did
you have that? Well, I should back up. Did you have the exodus of the young people?
We did. Those who left, whether in the military or college or otherwise, mostly did not come back. And now the last data I saw from Harvard was we have one of the highest return rates of any community in the greater Sacramento region. And that's both a function of a lot of different things, but it also drives a lot of things. So that's partly, do we have housing? Do we have places to have fun? Do you feel safe? Is this somewhere where you would raise your own child and start a family of your own? It's like everything that you care about in a small town. In some ways, the best barometer of that is people who grew up here. Do they want to come home? Do they see a whole life ahead of them in your town? And so it's one of the reasons why one of the very first things I did when I became mayor 22 years ago was to work on bringing a college here, bringing the local community college to have a campus here, because our college rates were really low. The college was like offering classes at our local high school, but it was totally random. And they were about to close it down because they said, Mayor, hey, nobody in West Sacramento really is interested in higher education. So we're going to close down the program. I said, no, nobody's interested in like taking a Spanish course today and a computer science course next week and an art class the next week. They want to get a program. They want to get a degree or a certificate or a license or something. You're not offering that. You need to double down. And to their credit, the Sacramento City College and Los Rios Community College did do that and opened a full-blown campus right in our new downtown. And it's been a game changer for that sense of opportunity, for partnerships with the high school, in a sense that this was a place that was a great place to grow up and a great place to raise a family.
So listening to all of you tonight about, what can make a small town good, seems to me that you've kind of just talked about what makes life good. So you have to have the basic necessities, you have to have water. And then after that, you need opportunity. You need something that makes your children want to come home. You need some fun. You need a place to live. And you need a place that everybody meets. I think after the pandemic, we know how nice it is to run into people that you didn't set out to run into, that you might not even know all that well, but a sense of community and just bumping into faces, I think you guys are talking about life in general, but let's get back to small towns. Maybe, did I miss anything, Christopher? When somebody's trying to make a small town better.
I think you're so right about this. Like it's just about life in so many ways. And I think most small towns are not really very good at this, right? We're trapped in just don't make it, don't change anything, or hey, new mayor, just don't mess it up, or we've already tried that 100 times, that'll never work, right? For many small towns are defeated, and so when I see Rene, when I see Megan, I'm seeing small town leaders that are busting through, and figuring it out, but also demonstrating how casually possible it is for lots of small towns, and then for bigger cities to look and say, hey, maybe we don't need to spend 3 years studying this. Maybe, as Rene says, maybe instead of hiring a consultant to figure out where the next big place is, why don't we just open our eyes and open our ears a little bit, right? So small towns, we're neither a bundle of deficits, but we shouldn't be romanticized as like we're perfect either.
Right.
That we have our own struggles, but I think what we're seeing from communities like Gonzales and Coachella, and I hope mine too, is that there is a way, to borrow Rene's term, there is a path forward for small towns to make the best of both. That sense of intimacy and connection and collision that you're describing, Diana, along with the capacity and the ability to really deliver on transformative change.
And there's some things for the big cities to learn, like maybe a few less task force.
Yeah. You know, one thing I would add to that, Diana, is at least job creation. So how do you leverage what you do well? For us, it's ag, is the center, ag tech. Over the last 15, 20 years, 2,000 new jobs have been created here in the community. It's bringing people from the outside, but also folks from our community. But if you can't do that, look around you. Can you leverage opportunity? Can you help your community leverage opportunities somewhere else? And so I think that's another piece of what makes any town great. I mean, life, right? You need
Right.
I often said, we have a pretty good sustainability initiative here, but how does that put food on the table? How does that improve life? Nobody wants to destroy the world, but what does that mean when you're a farm worker, when you're never home, your kids are by themselves, you're literally going paycheck to paycheck? How does all these policies and all these things big issues, how does that affect me directly? And I think that small towns are able to make that connection, I think, or I don't know if it's easier, but I think that connection is more readily apparent if you can leverage it.
Is it maybe more real instead of theoretical?
Yes, I think so. Mayor said it, it's whatever. We don't have 5, 6, 7 years we've tried this study that we spent and it went nowhere. It's on the shelf. And it's kind of like, no, we're not going to do that again. We don't need a study to tell us people want housing, people want education, people want clean water, people want opportunity. We don't need to have study after study tell us that. And so I think job creation, to the extent you can help that as well, it's also important.
Megan, anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I kind of want to build off that just with a personal point of view, because I'm thinking about, why is it that I never went back to my small town, hometown? And I think a big piece, some of those elements of a good small town are in place in terms of the basic necessities and the relationships and so forth. But there's, in my hometown, small town in Iowa, there's really a lack of opportunities for people who are wanting to grow into different professions or to find economic growth or progression in their lives. And so, they're in my hometown, like for someone like me who wanted to become a lawyer, or for others who have grown into other types of professions and futures, there was no place for us to come home and continue, with those visions and those dreams. So for me, the choice was to find basically a new home. And I went almost as far as I could feasibly go away from Iowa, unfortunately, because I miss my family. But Coachella, the way that it's been growing over the years, has started to provide a lot of those opportunities. And I think we're increasingly seeing residents, who are going off to school or maybe going through their adventurous years, but coming back to Coachella, both because there is some job growth and some newer professional opportunities in the city, but also, as Rene was alluding to, and I think Christopher as well, we have the proximity to other cities and other job centers that still make it feasible for Coachella residents to come home and still, live out their dreams and to grow economically and professionally. And so that's really key, I think.
So we have to close. I'm actually pretty bummed. This has been such an optimistic, hope-filled conversation. The fact that you can make the place you are better instead of having to leave. And if you do leave, you can work for a town and try to make it a place that other people don't have to leave. And you guys have all done innovative, creative things using basically personal relationships that are fostered in a smaller town. So thank you for that. And thanks for your time tonight. I want to thank everyone, especially the people watching. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sending your very smart questions. Thank you as well to Zócalo Public Square and the California Wellness Foundation for presenting this important conversation. And to, again, just thank you everyone for joining us. This video will stay public online, and you'll also be able to find a summary of our talk, plus interviews with all the panelists on Zócalo's website. which is Zocalo publicsquare.org. And you can find them. So I hope Coachella people who need water find Megan. If you enjoyed this event, be sure to tune in next event on Thursday, which is June 24th at 5:30 p.m. They're going to be talking about how have women's sports changed since Title IX. And if you're on the go, you can listen to the podcast and subscribe to the newsletter for updates. Thank you guys. Thank you all for such an interesting, optimistic, hopeful conversation when we could all use that. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.